maybe to some extent. Certain birds do die of cold, and just when they can't get sheltered enough, they can't get their feathers dry enough. We've had a couple of starlings, particularly with the one or two early rains that we experienced when the temperatures were still low. A couple of them did die. That might be an animal that could be considered to be at risk. But other than that, most of the animals fairly well adapted to coping with it, and then it'd probably have to be something wrong with them. Warthogs in the burrows might struggle a little bit. I can't think of much else really that on an animal level. Tortoises rejoice, most of the animals rejoice. Maybe there's certain insect species, but I can't think of any. They generally tend to flourish when they come out. Look at this guy. Hello, what are you doing up there? Does that give you a huge height advantage? Mr. Crowned Lapwing and Mrs. Crowned Lapwing, sitting on top of the beginnings of a termite mound. Is that their juvenile there, or is that just a third individual to the right digging through the elephant dung in the mid? There we go. I think it's the same. I think it's the same family we've been watching along this road all season. The two adults and the juvenile, just the juvenile already coming close to the adults in size. They're such fun birds to watch. They did have two. We managed to raise one, but still quite an achievement. But yes, sitting on the beginnings of a termite mound. And that brings us to Naomi's question about the termite mounds that we see. She was wondering, in the rain, are they strong enough to not be washed away? And what do the termites do in order to stay safe in those large termite mounds that we might see? For example, there is one, not the best example, but there's one on our right there to indicate what Naomi was talking about. And Naomi, sometimes big sections do, if they become exceptionally waterlogged, do occasionally sort of slough off. But for the most part, that mud collection is so strong, it's become almost like cement. It's become almost like dried cement, which is almost impervious to water once it is dry. And the bits that tend to slough off are the newly built parts that haven't completely dried. Luckily for the termites, first of all, those upper parts are essentially about 1/8 of the entire termite mound. There is close to 10 times more underneath the surface of the earth than we see on top of it. They're not all that vital, and also there are millions and millions of termites in the colony, or at least 1 million termites in that colony, most of them workers, so they will be out fixing as soon as the rains have gone. And you will see them, and you'll see a lot of fresh work. That termite mound, for example, that the bird was sitting on, is fresh termite mound building. So they will go and repair any damage that is done almost immediately, particularly since the days tend to stay cool, so they can work not just overnight, but also during the day. In terms of protecting themselves from floods, we've talked about how the holes within the termite mounds themselves are part of an incredibly sophisticated, what's the word I'm looking for? Ventilation system, that's what I'm trying to say. They can be opened and closed at will by the termites, and you'll probably found that for the larger ducts for the termites, they will go and block them up and make sure that they're not in any way being flooded by rain. They repair and build mind-bogglingly quickly. Fascinating in that respect. So no danger there. I'm just going to get hold of James for a second. Just check and see if he's not at the hyena den. Oh, I picked the exact moment as a conversation started. Let's just wait for one moment. I wonder if we are going to get more rain. I think we're going to. Some serious clouds building up. Unusual for them to build up in that direction. We usually see them in the west. There you go. They are beautiful clouds. Hundreds of meters high in the sky. Yes, power line in the way. The type of clouds that pilots immediately drive around and not through, given all of the incredibly unsettled nature and the electrical. Sorry, pilots don't drive around clouds. Pilots fly around clouds. Jamie, after a while, once you start to speak continuously for an excessive period of time, I start to mix up all kinds of words. It's going to get worse. You can anticipate that slowly but surely the vocabulary will start. It starts nice and high. It's a sort of a decreasing graph with a drop off right towards the end, at which point I no longer remember my own name. Right, what was I saying? Pilots fly around those clouds to avoid the unsettled atmospheric conditions within them. How was that? James? He's ignoring me. Oh well. We shall pop our nose. I just wanted to check and see if James was at the hyena den now. And I'm sure that was his plan initially, just to do some of the filming behind the scenes. Here we go. It's not just me that does it. Sometimes when we get questions fed through to us, every now and again, those sentences go awry as well. So I'm glad that happened there. Gone, disappeared. While we continue on, I know that Brent said that he was on his way towards Sydney's dam, and Ellen, watching in Arkansas, was wondering, have we seen any elephants swimming in the dams? Are they deep enough yet? Ellen, from what I saw of Buffelshoek, definitely they would be deep enough for the elephants to swim in. I personally haven't seen any swimming yet. Maybe it's just because they've either been out at the wrong time of day or because it's been quite cool and cloudy. But speaking of elephants, I don't know if James touched upon this on his afternoon drive yesterday. Oh, so easy to lose track of days. Was yesterday Sunday? Yes, yesterday was Sunday, so Renius left yesterday. But in that time, we actually came out very close to where we are now to come and do our little tracking test and to have some fun, to learn some things. And during that time, we had 2 Big 5 encounters on foot. The first was a leopard that wandered straight across the road in front of us, which was a lovely surprise. She must have been, we heard the monkeys calling and then we heard the impala alarm calling. She must have been probably about 50 meters from us. Absolutely awesome moment. And then just towards the end, as it was starting to get hot, we actually had some elephants moving through the bushes towards us. We heard them coming. What we immediately did was present ourselves nice and clearly to the elephants, just to let them know that we better to have the animals see you at a nice safe distance than to come as a surprise to them. But they were clearly on a mission. They wanted to be somewhere. It was that hot time of day. Maybe even then they were going for a swim in Sydney's dam, Ellen. As it was, we had to make a fit. We weren't in any danger. It was just important to recognize that we were very much in the path of where the elephants wanted to be. Liam spotted something. What have you? Oh, yes, there we go. We can see the clouds nicely. Let me go off the road so that we can look at them. Interesting climatic conditions occurring here. I'm sure there's more rain coming. The silhouette of the dead tree. Beautiful. Well, we might be in for some more rain, everybody. definitely, I have to be honest, after that initial cloudburst that we had about a week ago, I really honestly thought that was it for our rain. And clearly I was absolutely mistaken in that respect. I don't think that it's the end at all. We've had far more than, and when it started to get hot then I thought, okay, now the cold front is over. But again, not the case. Liam's just going to do a quick windscreen wipe. Thank you very much, Liam. Making sure that your view is not in any way obscured. Ta-da! Thanks, Liam. Clean and fresh. Usually stuff that we would do whilst you were with the other vehicle, but since that is an impossibility, we shall let you in on a bit of some of the behind-the-scenes secrets of the cameraman. Now what I'm going to do, please forgive me, I'm going to take a sip of water and just have some water, rest my voice for a moment. You can enjoy the lovely view. Interestingly, up until I started this job at Wild Earth, millipede, I was not what somebody would have described as the most loquacious of people. In other words, talking an immense amount was something of an anathema to my personality. Something that I've learned to change and to work on, obviously as part of the job of being a presenter as well as a guide. I talk a lot to my guests, obviously, but it's very different to conducting one of these live drives. It's a whole new world for me in the last few months. What I will probably do is go and curl up afterwards, and people won't hear a word from me for the rest of the evening. Here's the other half of the Kruger population of impala. I don't want to dawdle too long. Oh, no, I definitely won't dawdle at all. Sorry, guys. Very sorry. Here we go. Sorry, impalalas. I had to move for signal so that you could be on TV. Because you're so beautiful. I'm not going to dawdle too long with them, since we're going to run out of light at the hyena den. But look at that face. Actually, look at this little one nibbling here. So cute. Quite a young, skinny-looking creature. I love watching the way their lips move around the leaves. Hello, girl. Such nimble lips. Keep your eyes out for light lummokies, some of the late births. I haven't seen that many tiny looking. Excuse you?
They will sound like silkworms in a box.
When they're feeding. That's exactly what they sound like. Fiam's absolutely right. They sound like silkworms in a box. Oh, panic. Sprinting across. One of the males obviously scared them. I think that he's the one making the grunting sound. Fiam's raised a really good point, and that is that when you're sitting in the middle of an impala herd, it sounds like, and I'm not sure what it's like growing up elsewhere in the world, but when you grow up in South Africa as a kid, everybody has a box full of silkworms that you feed mulberry leaves to, and that you keep as your pets, and then they have the moths, and then it is that wonderful. I mean, I had my silkworms for years. They'd breed, they'd lay their eggs, we'd keep their eggs nice and safe in the cupboard, and then they'd hatch as the next generation of silkworm caterpillars. You'd have them all over your hands. I'm not even sure that's still a tradition. Look at that. Oh, they stopped so quickly. Even the two young males there, with their barely there horns, were sparring. Little horns growing through already. And that brings us to the point that, or the question that Christopher was asking, as the little males dash across. Oh, met with head down, fierce horns. Shame, little girl. Already they're being bullies, and they're not even old enough to breed yet. Christopher, while we continue on to our hyena den, you were wondering if there's any female antelope species that grow horns. And yes, absolutely there are. It's a really interesting study into why certain species of females have horns and certain don't. And the answer is you have horns for two reasons. One is yourself, and two is as a reproductive strategy for the males in order to compete for the females. So antelope species that live more typically are associated with more open environments like wildebeest, and yes, wildebeest are antelope species, hartebeest, gemsbok or oryx as they are known. Eland is a really good example of that. Well, all of them will have, the females will have horns as a way of defending themselves and their youngsters. Impala, nyala, kudu, bushbuck, antelope species that are associated with a more dense habitat, closed off vegetation, that rely more upon hiding and sort of ducking and diving through the bushes rather than fighting, the females do not have horns. And that's because horns are thick, dense bush. You are much more likely to find yourself trapped or stuck if you're running away and you're not watching where you're going. They're heavy, they're ungainly, they're bulky, but the males keep them. And the males keep them because they need to compete for the females. Now just imagine being a male kudu with a heavy set of horns, dashing through vegetation, even like the stuff we're moving through now. They have to tilt their heads back so that they don't get stuck. Definitely not advantageous in that respect, but when it comes to the all-important matter of passing on your genes to the next generation, then those horns come in really useful. The reason that the eland is such a good example, why I said that was a good example, is because eland, kudu, nyala, bushbuck all fall under the same antelope tribe, which is essentially like a family, and that is that of the Traphalagans, or the Traphalagus antelope, the spiral-horned antelope. And yet you've got such a clear distinction between the eland that live in a more arid area and therefore a more open habitat compared to the nyala and the bushbuck and the kudu. So eland, both males and females, have horns. So a nice example there of the way in which that technique plays, or that theory has such strong evidence working for it. In this particular area, I can only think of wildebeest. Sable is a possibility. We could see sable here. Ooh, excuse me. I know that the first sable in 17 years was seen on the Djuma Dam camera at some point. So it is a possibility. Roan also have, we could see them here. Again, not really the right habitat for them. Tessabe and hartebeest. There's the odd, interestingly enough, there have been some studies done, there's the odd female duiker with horns. Nobody's quite sure how that works because that doesn't quite tie into the whole theory. Maybe just a genetic abnormality. But generally within this habitat, it's more common to have the species where only the males have horns. Now, an animal like a gemsbok or an oryx, for example, a tall horse-like antelope that exists in the desert areas, the Kalahari and those sorts of places. Even the females have these meter-long spears on the tops of their heads and are fiercely aggressive antelope. They will fight and defend themselves and their offspring to the death. And I've seen it in action before. When a gemsbok goes down onto its front legs and it scythes those spear-like horns from side to side, I would be hard-pressed to think of a predator that would not be intimidated. From the smallest right up into a wild dog would think twice, or a lion would think twice about taking them on. Important to have weapons when you can't run and hide. Thank you, Safari Dean. That's really kind. And Khader as well. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Right, here we go. My happy place. And if we're going to do 3 hours solo, we're going to come to my happy place. And Hope Community, who's watching on YouTube, was just wondering when on earth we managed to find time to visit the bathroom. You're saying, oh my goodness. On a 3-hour stint like this, you just sort of don't. Although if we were absolutely desperate, I imagine that we could make a plan. But, you know, you learn to do 3 hours is fine. If we were getting to 5 or 6 hours, we might have a slight problem, and you might not see me sitting as still as I currently am. Looking very quiet here at the hyena den. Here we go. Hello, little monsters. Not the greatest view, but one that will have to do for now. Hello, little ones. How are you doing? Who have we got here? Could this really be the January twins? I think it is. You look so big. So big and brave. Having a good sniff of the air. I did just want to stop in, see what was happening there. Look at this incredible light that's in front of us. Hello. Hello, little mischief. Now that looks... Who's that? Is that one of the December twins now? I think it is. A little bit too big for November. Oh, sorry, December. Oh, somebody having a jolly good tug of war. Hello. Hello, Naughty. Looking stunning in the golden afternoon light. Now, one of the reasons that I came through here... Hello, monster. Are you going to go come and say hello? Are you feeling brave? Not so much. Hello. Oh, look at this. This is my favorite thing about hyena dens. Speaking nice and softly. Look here. Right here. Sorry, ducking my head out of the way. Just so that I can keep an eye on what they're doing. Oh, no, we'll go that way. Such curious little beings. The one reason that I was trying to call James on the Game Drive channel was just to check and see whether or not he was here to do some filming. And unfortunately, it seems as though both of us have arrived at the same time. He's trying to film on the other side of the den. And just because we only want to have to sort of go through this, we want to try and get the stuff done as quickly as possible, I'm actually going to suggest that we spend only a moment or two more with the cubs and then we'll move on. It's nice just to pop our heads in and have a look, and then we'll leave the den sighting to James and let him get on with what he needs to do. There's somebody playing King of Castle. Hello, little monster, clambering up there. We won't spend too long here at all. Just nice to check in, have a look at how our favorite little ones are doing. Amazing how fiercely attached you can become to animals like this when you spend as much time with them as we have. Hey, Wobbly. Oof. Amazing how tough those pads are, even for little ones. Bouncing down. Oh, more coming up. Let's reposition for a nice view. Oh no, this is quite a nice view actually. Hello. Playing King of the Castle on the termite mound. And I can hear James's vehicle coming through. I'm just going to get hold of him on the Game Drive channel. James.
Yes.
Is that you coming up to the Misikai entrance now?
Okay.
Copy that. It is active. Do you mind standing by for just 30 minute or so?
Sure.
Thank you. Beautiful sky. Well, actually, since the cubs have decided to move over and behind the top of the den, and James has arrived, I think that we'll take the opportunity to move out. We'll let him come in, and we'll make up for it at other. We've got plenty of time to spend at this hyena den. Nice to just stop in and see how they're all doing. A bit of the beginnings of their games of I'm the King of the Castle. Oopsie. Not sure how I bumped that car into Difflock. Now this is the hyena den of multiple U-turns. When I first discovered it, I got well and truly and completely lost. We found it, Viam and myself actually found it about, when was that, Viam? Sometime last year. Time blends. And we marked it with the GPS coordinates. And I came back convinced that I would find it again and immediately got lost straight away. There's about 7 or 8 different termite mounds around this den site that are perfectly appropriate for a hyena den site. Apparently that's just happened to James as well sometime recently, so I don't feel so bad. But the number of U-turns that I have done in this particular block is probably equivalent to more than I have done anywhere else on the reserve, just from that one time before the road was nice and well established. I think let's go and make our way towards the Sydney's Dam. In the meantime, let's have a look at how glorious the colours of the sky truly are. Beautiful. Let's go see what's happening on the northern boundary of Djuma. And give James a chance to come in and do some off-air filming. Oh, there we go. So it's not just South African school kids. I'm not sure why I thought it would be. It actually doesn't make any sense that it would be a purely South African thing. But Gretchen, who's watching in Illinois, actually her 8-year-old son has just done the same thing with silkworms. Sorry guys, hold on 1 second. Just listening to a Game Drive update. You know, it's something that's been pointed out, and now that it's been pointed out, I'm so conscious of it. All of us hold the Game Drive comms up to our ears like a phone. That doesn't really make hearing it any easier, so I'm not entirely sure why it is we do it. Interesting point. There's just an update from Ephraim that there's a leopard on Torchwood, but I'm not sure which leopard it is. I will find out for you and give you that update sometime later. Now, I was talking about the silkworm project that was going on to go along with a book that the 8-year-olds were reading called The. And that's an interesting story. I'm sure there are photos from my childhood covered in silkworm caterpillars and with those. One of my favorite things. Just a bit of a black market trade in silkworms when I was at school.
built a submarine for my sulfur.
You built a submarine?
And then I took a photo.
So we are being engineering things. I'm stationary for the moment, but it seems as though my signal is starting to get shaky the closer I get to Buffelshoek Dam. And thus we shall change our plans and go in the opposite direction, I think. How's that sky, though? Doesn't get much more beautiful than that. Hello, reverse. There you are. Here we go. Unfortunately, just a bit of a dip in signal, which is why I went so quiet. It wasn't just that I ran out of words. Sure. So Colin has asked me a question. Colin doing a biology project, and Colin would like to know what the bite force of a giraffe is. Colin, I'm really sorry, I have absolutely no idea. Okay, so what does a human sits at? Is it 150 or is it 300? I must just try and remember exactly what it is, PSI, so pressure per square inch. A hyena's is over 1,000. And a crocodile's is well over 1,000. So would a giraffe, here we go, let's put this question to everybody. Would a giraffe's bite force be smaller or greater than a human? Is that with all the chewing that they do, they must be developing some serious jaw muscles around there. They chew far more than we do, being ruminants. And thus my expectation is that a giraffe's bite force is far more serious than that of a human being. Where do we go from there, though? What would we guess at? I'm gonna absolutely throw a guess out of this. I've never really thought about the pressure or the bite force of a giraffe. 500 psi. I don't know how many people have measured the bite force of a giraffe, to be completely honest, Colin. Tell you what, Colin, how's about this for a solution to this situation? I shall consult with our different presenters and with the different guides, and I'll see what James and Brent and Steph think about the bite pressure of a giraffe or bite force and how much greater it would be than that of a human. And once we do that, then we'll be able to give you a slightly better answer. I'll pop it up, Colin, I'll pop it on my Twitter feed as to what conclusion we come to.
Just west of Brown Outreach.
My apologies. Now there is a question that I don't know the answer to. It's something we think of bite force when we think of predators, but for the most part, unless we were considering something like an elephant, I doubt that I'm actually even going to ask if any of the other presenters have ever been asked about bite force of any of the herbivores. Because Colin, what you've done, and it's one of the things that I love about these live safaris, is all of a sudden you've asked a question that we probably would never have asked ourselves. Because we've got such a wide range of audience, it gives us that opportunity to really expand our understanding by answering the questions or discovering questions, and maybe even discovering where the holes in our understanding are. Because of course it's impossible for us to know everything about the world out here, But sometimes you get to the point where you forget to ask questions, or you forget what questions to keep on asking yourself. And that's when questions like Colin's come through and are a really nice reminder of a whole section of knowledge that you haven't even or that one hasn't even considered the possibility of thinking about. Ooh, duck the millipede. Hopefully now, as it starts to get dark after the rain, fingers crossed, we're going to have some termites coming out. We might get the different frog species out. I know that. Let's just stop here for one moment. Sorry. I thought I heard guinea fowl alarm calling, but that might have been just in my head, because it's completely silent now. Maybe it really was in my head. Nope. We would have heard them by now. I know that James managed to get an African bullfrog on camera last night, I think. They also managed to get a rain frog as well. Oh, but there's all of this groundwater. We're definitely going to start seeing some frogs. Let's even stop and have a look and see if we hear any of them calling next to this little pan. There's something swimming in the water there. Is it a frog? I think the light is just going to bounce off here. So what's in my hair? I swear I saw a frog moving, but maybe that was just wishful thinking. We'll check all along here. Look at all of this water. Isn't it awesome? What have you spotted there, Liam? Wishful thinking. Oh well, we'll keep looking. We'll try and find you some frogs to share. Good place to stop and look, though. You never know where they might suddenly emerge out of the woodwork. And speaking of animals coming out in the evening, Amy has heard us talk a lot about bush babies and yet has never seen one. And Amy was wondering, what is a bush baby? And Amy, the answer is, and now I mentioned before, it's that funny time of year. It's too hot and too cold. I'm too hot now with my jacket on. Amy, a bush baby is our smallest primate in this area. It is a nocturnal primate, and it's probably got to fall under the heading of one of the cutest animals that you could possibly see out here. I'm going to look through my index and drive at the same time and look for animals. I'm fairly certain I can accomplish all of those things since I'm going fairly slowly and it's a straight road. Oops, no, we don't want to go that way. Here we go. And Amy, keep watching. There we go. This is a greater bush baby. One that we might see here, but unlikely. Far more likely to see this little guy, the lesser bush baby, or the galago. And the reason they're called bush baby is because they sound like babies. In the middle of the night. Happened when we were staying. It's particularly the greater bush baby that sounds so, the resemblance is so strong to that of a human baby. And it happened when Brent and myself were staying up in Pafuri recently, about 2 weeks ago. And one of them called right next to the tent we were staying in, right next to my head. I promise you, the two of us levitated out of the beds and across to the other side of the tent, because it's not a sound that we're used to hearing. But Amy, stick around to the end of the sunset safari, because as it gets darker, and once we get our spotlight out, there's a very good chance that we could spot a bush baby or a galago. Difficult to film because they're not exactly known for sticking about in one place. It's very seldom that we manage to catch them close to their nests and are able to enjoy a sighting where they stay. But we should be able to, fingers crossed, we should be able to get you a bush baby sighting. And you see that picture that I showed you. It doesn't really give you a perspective or a scale in terms of size, So the body is about roughly the size of my hand. And my hand, I would say, is, what would we go with? Average sized? Maybe a little bit on the small side, if I'm completely honest. So my hand's slightly smaller than average, and that's about as big as a bush baby's body is, with a nice long extended tail that would go down to about half of my forearm. Exactly what it is we're looking for in terms of maybe the color. How can we tell what the animal is so that we know not to leave the spotlight on it too much? Now, Francois, I don't know if you've ever been into, I'm sure you've been on safari at some point, or maybe you have been on safari at some point, and you might have been told that there are different colors for different animals. So green generally meaning the herbivore species, the daytime species. It's not entirely 100% true. There's no real, to me, there's no discernible color difference, or at least that's not what I'm looking at. So the color difference comes from the angle at which the light strikes the eye. And our herbivores have their eyes sitting on the sides of their heads. Predators have or nocturnal animals like mongoose or lions or leopards or hyenas, they've got their eyes situated like us, right in the front, forward facing, in order to hunt. And that's more to me what you're looking for. You're looking for the position of the eyes, as well as the fact that, to me, the exciting nocturnal creatures, the ones that we really want to see when we're using our spotlight, to me, they have an eye shine, so that reflection from the tapetum lucidum at the back of the eye. To me, they have an eye shine that almost glows like a hazard sticker. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but you know the safety outfits that cyclists wear when they cycle at night, or the hazard or cat's eyes on the road. It's a very bright, almost jarring reflection that you get back. So that is how you immediately know that it is one of the nocturnal species. After that, you start to factor in size, the distance between the eyes, the distance off the ground, and the way in which the eyes move as well. So often what something maybe like a leopard will do if it spots you is it might duck down and do this with its head. You get the eye shine moving like that. Things like civets or mongoose might dash away, scurry away for a bit, and then look back at you. You learn, the more you do it in a way, the more you start to associate, you start to learn automatically what your brain is looking at. That doesn't mean you don't get caught out though. Bushbuck, for some reason, bushbuck and I'm always convinced they're a leopard. So now we've got to the right time where we can start looking. Bush babies, contrary to everything I've just said, have bright red eye shine. To me at least, they shine very, very red, and I'm still looking out for some. We find them for Amy so she can see her first bush baby. So to me they shine a very bright red. So do nightjars, the birds that sit, the insectivorous birds that sit in the middle of the road. That's the sort of thing that we're looking for. And the nice thing about nighttime is you can almost just relax your brain and just let your eyes do the work, because it's so quick to spot something out of place that's been highlighted by the spotlight. Even chameleons, which people often, when they see it being done, are amazed at the power of observation. Once you get used to looking for them, they lose their color at night. They turn white, essentially. They don't lose their color. Their pigments move about so that they reflect white. And so they stand out really nice and clearly in the bushes. Although I must say I haven't seen that many chameleons this year. I'm not sure if it's a product of the season. Not the season, sorry, the drought. I'm checking along towards Galago Pan. Not really, because I think all that many animals are going to be utilizing it for water. Just more because it's a nice thick habitat that hides animals like leopards and hyenas very well. I think most of the animals will not be bothering to come and drink at the pan at the moment. There's plenty of groundwater for them elsewhere to go and enjoy. Right, Amy, let us see if we can find you a bush baby. And we'll have a look for nightjars as well. And on a cool night like tonight, and after the rain, there might even be civets and other nocturnal creatures coming out to take advantage of the explosion of insects that will occur. Termites in particular, of course. And I'm craving a genet sighting. What do you think, Liam? Genet? Or should we go serval? Let's look for serval.
Serval's good, but I think you like civet.
Civet? Yeah, we could do civet. Oh, whoopsie daisy. Sorry, road. Made a bit of a... Oh, it's not too bad. I thought I dug a deep trench, but I hadn't, actually. We just slid a little bit. Now, bush babies, the reason that what I'm doing, if you watch the way that I move with the spotlight without trying to make you in any way feel sick, what I try and do is move fairly rapidly from side to side, checking the open gaps in places where I think animals might be hiding. Now, that includes checking some of the more prominent trees for bush babies hiding there, and also up and down the drainage lines. And it's interesting because everybody has their own spotlighting technique. And it's very interesting as a guide to have other people spotlight for you. Because on one hand, it's a nice break. Your arm gets a break. You get to we don't have to concentrate as hard on driving because you're driving one-handed. But on the other hand, you get so, not uptight, but you want to make sure that you're doing it because it's so much harder. It's one of the reasons, oh my goodness, I'm driving with an open door the whole time. That would have been fun. That's one of the reasons why our cameramen don't follow the spotlight as we spotlight along, because our movements are so, what's the word, unpredictable and almost jerky in a way, the way that we check. We don't swing it smoothly from side to side. And you'd probably find that for our viewers, they would become absolutely, unbelievably motion sick if we were to do that. Oh, come on, bush baby, we've got to get you. We've got to get you for Amy. Can't be the one night where we don't see a bush baby. Also looking out very carefully for the different frog species. I'm hoping we're going to see at least one. I wonder, here's something to show in talking about the speed at which termites build. I'm going to have to move further away from the road though. Sorry, Liam, I'm going to go off the road here. And we can actually see them at work as well. Back to our earlier question about will termites' mounds survive the rain? I've chatted a bit about the speed at which they repair and they build. And if you look here, just at this little mound alone, just the top of that mound where you can see all of those worker termites working away in the cool, all of that wet dirt, can you sort of see the color difference between the top part of the mound and the bottom? That's all been done in the last few hours. And this is a fairly young, fairly small termite mound. You can imagine how with the larger harvester termites and the different termite species, how fast they would be able to build. Now, those are the workers. Now, that is probably the soldiers would be at least twice that size. You never know, but a nice little example. Now, interesting news has just come through, and that apparently is that Mr. Henry would actually like to say hello to you. So why don't you jump onto the back of his vehicle? I'll have a quick break and a drink of water, and we will catch up with you after that.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Wendy, who is, well, not shining very brightly, but we just thought we'd have a catch-up with you. You know, I became lonely without your company. So here I am. We're driving down the main access road at WildEarthTV, and we've been shooting a promo. And basically, of course, to popularize Safari Live, we have to shoot these promos now and again, and that means that you have been in the able and, able and highly elevating company of Jamie Patterson. And we have seen is back at Biffle's Hook, He seems to be in fine fettle. But other than that, we've seen a couple of impala, 1 or 2 zebra, 1 wildebeest who ran away in that direction, actually straight off this road. And that's about it. When we got to the hyena den, we saw 2 cubs and then they disappeared inside. So all in all, it's been rather quiet. Not what you'd call a tip-top promotional day for Safari Live, but that will hopefully change, as it always does, as we know. Around every corner there can be anything. Any animal that you can imagine will be here. And our plan for the rest of the drive, not much of a drive left, is to just sort of patrol quarantine clearings, see what we can find around there, and hope that something comes out into the open. What is the matter? My radio mic is off. Is it? Hello? Can you hear me? It is off. Jean-Dre is absolutely correct. I'm an idiot. Thank you, Jean-Dre, for pointing out that I'm an idiot. There we go. Now I will be blisteringly loud. Precisely how it should be, of course. So it's been a cloudy day, and of course you've been deprived of your safari this morning, as we all were, by some beautiful rain, and it was just so lovely to have it again. I'm not sure how many millimeters. It felt like about 5 to 10 millimeters that we had, which is about 1/5 of an inch is 5 millimeters. And it will continue to break what has been a dreadful drought. I don't know that it's certainly not going to last, I don't think, till the next dry season is finished, but it will provide some respite. And to some of the animals that have started to look very ropey indeed, the impala, their ribs have been showing, and the youngsters are starting to look a bit hippie, their hips are showing. Even the buffalo, which seem to have been doing so very well. There's an elephant charging towards us. Sorry, there they are. He wasn't charging towards us so much as running towards his companion. We don't have much light on this car, everyone, so we'll just quickly show you where the elephants are. You'll have to take my word for it, but there are 2 elephants there, and there was a young elephant who got a big fright, and he was running down towards us because his friend is with him there. It's like telling a story to people in the darkness. Anyway, so it is. I'll just quickly try and identify them. They're just off to the right. We wouldn't shine a light on them anyway, even if we had a blinding spotlight. That's why. There's a very, very little one there. So we're just going to ease our way past. Very nice. Right. Nice threat of rain again today, but at least tonight, but hopefully tomorrow we will have some clarity and it will be a clear and magnificent evening and morning. We are in desperate need of a sunrise for our promo. Now, Amy, you are in California, and I believe you are looking for a bush baby. Well, that's good news. Bush babies are relatively abundant around here, and I actually know of a nest not too far from here. So while Jamie is also on the hunt, we will go to another spot where there could be some, and even these rather pathetic lights on Wendy will be able to shine into the hole, and we'll see if they aren't about to come out. I think bush babies are the most fascinating things because they go into this torpor. And torpor, apart from being a very fine word to use in a sentence, is a fascinating sort of physiological state that many animals go into. Mammals and reptiles and amphibians, I don't think fish do it so much. Birds, maybe. No, birds probably not. But it's a state of which your metabolism drops, and in many mammals that means that they will allow their body temperatures to drop. Now, if your body temperature as a human being drops below, say, 30 degrees, you're in quite a lot of trouble. And your body will probably start to shut down. You can warm yourself up again and be okay, but it won't cope with it very well. Now, lots of the smaller animals out here, which lose heat very quickly, and so it's therefore expensive for them to make the heat that makes up their body temperature, many of those animals go into a state of torpor, where they sort of shut down, and their body temperatures drop below 30 degrees quite often, and they go into a sort of deep sleep. I know many people who go into sleep like that. Very difficult to get them up. Gendre this morning actually was in such a state after the rain. It put him into a state of torpor, didn't it, Gendre?
Right, sir.
Anyway, if you find a bush baby before they're ready to get up, and before they're ready to go foraging in the night time, you can actually pick them up by hand. They can't move. They're just kind of, they're like a, you know, like when you wake a child up out of when it's been in a very deep sleep and it can hardly kind of find out where it is, it can hardly speak, it can hardly kind of move. That's exactly what a bush baby looks like when it's coming out of torpor. And then slowly the metabolism will speed up, and as it speeds up, so it'll start to move like they can. And of course they bounce all over the place like the gummy bears of old. If you don't know what a gummy bear is, you're either very young or you haven't lived. Gendre, do you know what a gummy bear is? There we go. Gendre is singing the song for us, as was Geraldine. Not much in the way of stars. There's a planet up ahead of us, and I'm not sure what planet it is. It looks a little bit like Mars to me, simply because it's a bit wed. A pinprick of light in the inky roof of the night. You see how that rhymed, Gendre? So that's a planet, and you know it's a planet, not a star, because it's not twinkling. It's just one straight, solid beam. Yes, Happy Cub, exactly like bears in hibernation. You say torpor, exactly like bears in hibernation. It's T-O-R-P-O-R as far as I remember, torpor. So it's precisely what bears do when they go into hibernation. And of course, bush baby, for example, will go into kind of a mini hibernation every day, especially in the winter. And remember, for a bear, which has obviously got a very thick layer of subcutaneous fat, and it's got lots of thick fur, and it's also very big, which means that it will not lose temperature at anything like the same speed as a bush baby will. Fat is obviously a very good way to stay warm. Hello, Amy, in California. You are very grateful, of course, that we're looking for a bush baby for you. That is marvelous. It's only too pleasurable for us to try and find a bush baby for you. And you say that hopefully one day you will be able to come out here and see us. I think that sounds like a marvelous idea. I hope that so many of our loyal viewers will be able to come out here and experience the feeling of this wilderness for themselves. And if not, I hope that we do give you just a little touch of the peace and the wonder that this beautiful place is to us on a daily basis. Now, can I remember where the bush baby nest is the question. The answer shall be answered shortly, because it's just around the next bend. Yes, Master, that's a very good, that's a very good point. You say the only bird that goes into torpor is a hummingbird. Absolutely. I'd forgotten about that. Hummingbirds do, and of course it's because they're so tiny. I mean, some of them, I think the bumblebee hummingbird is about that big. Now that's about an inch long. So it weighs something like 6 grams. I don't know what that is in whatever system you happen to use in the United States for very small masses. It is definitely much smaller than an ounce. And it needs to go into the torpor simply because it's so expensive to maintain body heat when you're so little. Right, just through here, there should be a tree, Gendre, on the left-hand side, in which there will be bush babies living, hopefully just emerging as we come past. it's here. Is it here? No, I've looked in that tree and I know it's not there. Is it here? Yes, it is. It's this one here. I would move the light for you now, Jean-Ray. I don't see any bush babies in here, though. You can just see the last embers of the day there. It's disappearing. There's a hole there. Can you see that, Jean-Ray? There seems to be something grazing right next to us. It is an enormous buffalo. No, it's not. It's a hippo. No, it's a buffalo. Great big buffalo at bottom. Marvellous. That's a lovely sight for the evening, don't you think? Yes, hello. Did you not notice us before? He's deeply confused by how he has become a night attraction. So there, Jean, I don't know if you can see there, but in the middle of the tree, if you zoom right in on the first fork, Amy, that is a bush baby's nest. And Scott found that just before he left. And he was a brilliant nest finder, was Scott, probably still is. And that's where the bush baby lives. I suspect they're probably out already foraging. Lovely sounds of the night, and you might just be able to hear very subtle sounds of crickets. And I wonder if you can hear this buffalo grazing. I wonder if you can hear the crunching. See if you can hear him tearing the grass off. And hear him breathing. He breathes out through his nose. Isn't that wonderful? He's so close to us now. He's only about 3 feet. You hear that? Now you can hear his horns touching on the edge of the tree. Maybe you can hear the wind blowing, perhaps bringing in some more rain. For the size of his head is probably, well, from horn tip to horn tip, almost sort of 3 feet across, maybe 2.5 feet. And there he goes into the night. Marvellous. Just one last look, if you don't mind, Jean. I just love the subtle colour of the last embers of the day there. Isn't that nice? As the night comes over us, so it becomes day somewhere else, of course. Fiji, for example. Australia is probably already in tomorrow. On we go. Let me realign the light. There is, Jean, I'm giving you an opportunity here for extreme artistic prowess. Behold the moon through the dead tree, Jean. Now, you can't see the dead tree, of course. Wait, everybody, wait. There. Jean, surely there's some dead tree now. Oh, look. See? I'm so artistic. You see that, Jean?
Picasso.
Jean thinks I should stick to my day job. He's probably correct. So, the waxing moon. On we go. No leopards today, of course, which is a bit disappointing. I'm sure Jamie told you they were shouting outside the house where she and Brent live last night. Oh, hello, Darlene in New Hampshire. you want to know about the bats, and do we have any flying around here? We have many species of bats here, but, oh dear, the elephants have made a roadblock. Jean-Marie, this is a Sisyphus, so watch out. Darlene, many bat species. It's almost impossible to identify them to species level unless you can count the ridges on the tops of their pallets. And that, of course, is an activity for a bat specialist. I'm not somebody who enjoys doing that. Certainly, as you say, not the most popular, and therefore not many people want to get close enough to them to count the pallet ridges. But I can give you a number of groups of bats that we get. We get fruit bats sometimes, the Wahlberg's epauletted fruit bat. We get free-tailed bats, we get Vespa bats, and I think we get tomb bats as well. And probably, I'm guessing here, 2 or 3 species in each group. So lots and lots of bats that we find around here. And sometimes at night, I can't hear any at the moment, but you just hear the very high ultrasonic sounds going tip, 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 which are obviously much louder for them. And I'm sure, as many of you know, the most fascinating thing about bats, of course, is not that they are vampires, because, they're largely not. Those only occur in South America. But they are brilliant at finding things in the dark through radar. Radar is so sophisticated that it is able to find tiny insects in the night. And there was a wonderful story once about the sort of evolutionary arms race that takes place between prey and predator. And there was a bat species, or there is a bat species, that likes to eat moths. But there's a moth that has evolved to hear the sonar that the bat puts out. So a bat sends out a sound wave, boop, and that then bounces off the moth back to the bat's ears and sophisticated hearing mechanism, so the bat can then find where the moth is. Now this all happens at the speed of sound. Now the moth is so clever that it has developed, as soon as it hears the bat calling, it drops to it just folds its wings immediately and drops. So it'll go slightly down, the bat will fly straight over the top of it and be unable to eat it. I forget exactly which bat and which moth it is, but it's the most brilliant strategy that this moth has evolved over millions of years of its friends being eaten by bats. It is now able to hear the echolocation. They can drop down, the bat flies over the top of it and doesn't catch it, which I think is incredible. Much else going on out here. Some termites coming out still. I think we would have had the main termite emergence last night, and some wonderful frogs, 2 beautiful frogs that we had last night. We had the bullfrog, the African bullfrog, and then of course we had a tiny little bushveld rain frog, which is a very corpulent and angry looking little fellow who looks like, the one we saw yesterday looked like he'd eaten about 78 termites. So happy. And also lots of scorpions came out to eat the termites. Now no termites at all, which is quite interesting. I think the main emergence must have been during the course of last night. Now, it is of course middle of March, which means that we are heading slowly towards autumn, inexorably towards the autumn, and it is going to start cooling down. And the main thing, of course, for everybody to watch out for is, firstly, that the birds are going to disappear. So all of our migratory species are going to head off soon. Again, the woodland kingfisher became quieter today. We saw a few looking pensively towards the north. And then the insect life, which has exploded just at the last few days because of the rain, will also unfortunately start to calm down, and that's a bit sad. And then the next thing that will happen, of course, is that the trees will start to lose their leaves, and that's already started to happen because of this drought. And that's I think it's going to be a very difficult time for the animals going forward. But time will tell. We may get late winter rain, that's not impossible at all. if we'll spot a chameleon, or if we'll just see the darkness. It's not a lot out here, Jean-Andre. So it goes. And just to warn you, tomorrow we will be shooting this promo again, I'm afraid. So there won't be a great deal of action from this particular end. Ah, Marilyn, you want to know if a fruit bat is the one that looks like a flying fox? Yes, it does look like a flying fox. It's sort of a, well, yes, its face looks foxish. It doesn't have those, you know, the bats that echolocate have got these very strange arrangements and folds of skin on their faces around their noses, and that helps them to kind of, I don't know what it does, but it angles the sound waves that they send out that come back into their ears, and they can find out what's going on. But a fruit bat actually looks like a little fox's face, yes, because it doesn't echolocate. It uses its nose to find the fruit that it eats. There's a termite I was trying to catch to show you. Fortunately, I missed it. I wasn't a very good cricket player. Of course, cricket is a great mystery to most of our viewers, given that a lot of them come from the United States, where the thought of playing a game for 5 days where there could still be no winner is totally beyond the understanding of most human beings. Brent, of course, went to play cricket the other week, and he came back bruised and grazed, and his hamstring, despite him being such a young fellow, had given way again. And as Jerry makes a very good point, his hamstring is kind of, it's temperamental in that it's injured when there's something physical to do, or when he thinks he might receive sympathy. But when there are interesting things to do, when he doesn't want to be injured, it's a remarkable, incredible recovery it makes. But you can ask him about it tomorrow. He'll be driving you in the morning. So we're heading back towards quarantine clearings. Maybe a bush baby will appear. Maybe it will not. Maybe something will appear, Jean-Andre. Maybe it will not. I thought I'd spotted something interesting, but it's a piece of elephant dung. Which isn't interesting, really, in and of itself. Hello, curious cookie. Yes, exactly, you're correct. You say, aren't ultrasounds kind of like echolocation? Not strictly. I mean, ultrasound, ultra means higher, infra means lower. So ultraviolet means light we can't see. Infrared is light of too longer frequency, or too lower frequency for us to see, in the same way that ultrasound is sound that we can't hear because it's too high, and infrasound is sound that we can't hear because it's too low. And ultrasound is the kind of sound that a bat makes, and it pings it out, so it'll make, say, a squeak, and that squeak will bounce off the insect that it wants to eat and go back into the bat's ears, and that's echolocation. So it's the echo of the sound off the insect into the bat, through which it finds the insect, and that is echolocation. So that's where the echo comes from, location to find, echo, the echo of the sound. Thank you, Curious Cookie, for clarifying that for us. I think so often, you know, we have these discussions where I've had them many times, or a few times, and forget that new viewers especially often don't quite get what we're talking about. And that is one of the great joys of this job, is that our new viewers, of course, are discovering for the first time, and are, I don't want to say older, because that sounds, you don't want to call somebody old, really, do you? Our more experienced viewers, for example, have a certain base knowledge, which means that we can have some wonderfully deep discussions about the stuff that we see out here. And that is tremendously stimulating, and one of the great advantages of being, very great advantage of being around, sorry, excuse me one second. Great advantage of doing this job versus a guiding job where you're meeting new people every day. Right, that's it from me, everybody. Short drive, short and sharp. Let's go back to Jamie. She's got some frogs. Thank you, Jandre. Thank you, Jerry and Louise in the final control. Let's hand you back to Jamie and see you in the morning. Bye-bye.
How amazing are the sound effects coming from this little pan. I wanted to just try and start you off listening in the dark. A chorus of frogs. Now, while you've been with James, I've been sitting here trying to find each little frog. There is one calling right next to the vehicle. But the funny thing about frog calls, and I feel like I need to shout over them, although I don't want to do that at night, but the funny thing about certain frog species is they're almost like ventriloquists in that they can throw their voices to make it sound like it's coming from different directions. But keep your eyes peeled. Let's do a little bit of a search. We'll do a slow loop around the outside of the dam and look for the possibility of frogs here somewhere. See if you can spot them. I've been trying. I think there's one hiding somewhere here. Well, Amy will just have to join us on another sunset safari so that we can find a bush baby for you. In the meantime, we're coming to the end of our sunset safari, and so wonderful to hear sounds like this once again in the bushveld. I'm so rusty with my frog calls that I actually can't even remember what species this really is. It's amazingly loud. This is what a normal summer soundtrack out here really should sound like. And a big thank you to all of you for joining us. Big thanks to VM and Wildebeest for keeping me company in that long stretch that was this afternoon. Long but thoroughly enjoyable. I really loved every minute of being out with all of you and enjoying getting to essentially have you all to myself for most of the drive. And a thank you to Jerry and Lou in Final Control. And most importantly, a big thank you to all of you for sticking with us, for your questions and your comments. Those amazing questions coming through over the last few weeks. Have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. And don't forget to join us for the Sunrise Safari tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.